Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm
DV.
LeBron. Do you have repair needs in your house that maybe you want to do add on to the kitchen, or maybe you build a pergola outside? Check out K&H Construction. The local firm out of Waxahachie, Chris Helms, local guy out of Waxahachie, will help you out, take care of you. Let them know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is Dr. Belding, the MISD Superintendent. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great, DV. How are you?
I'm good. So we're having a bond election coming up, and I wanted to have you on because this is what I do. I like to inform the public about the things that are going on in our community, especially MISD. And, now that with this bond coming and this election, there are questions about all kinds of different things. So I wanted you to do the presentation, and then I'll just give questions along the way.
So this first slide is just an overview of our campuses with the district. We have 14 campuses, 8 elementaries, 3 middle schools, 2 comprehensive high schools, and we have 1 CTE center, which also includes our alternative high school credit recovery program and our discipline AP in daycare, and we call it the Mile. So our enrollment to date, this slide was created, was just a tad over 11,550. We live in a real mobile society, so we've already had more enrollment, and then we've had some kids move other places. So we topped out at 11,595 this fall so far, and now we drifted back down a little bit with some kids moving out. So
it does fluctuate. This is one thing that I did enjoy seeing recently is that you guys got on that best elementary and best high school. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is something that U.S. News and World Report does every year, and we're really proud. The high schools have earned that designation for multiple years, and both of them improved their ranking over the 24 ranking. We have 5 of our elementaries that earned that best elementary ranking. You can see their logos there. Of course, we're proud of all of our campuses, and they are really working hard and doing great things for kids, but super proud of this designation.
You're still willing not to commit to which has the better sports program, Heritage or Midlothian High? I tried to get you last interview to commit to that.
Yeah, I love my Jags and I love my Panthers. So they're all great, and I cheer really loud for all of them. Our state assessment scores continue to be well above the state average in every subject area. In the approaches and meets categories, we're double digits above the state. And so really proud of that. Proud of the kids and thank our parents for the support of our teachers. And our teachers work so hard to help our kids be ready.
How are they, because I know that there was a difference in scores between different schools. Obviously, that's going to happen. Every student kind of tests differently. Some of English language learner populations that are higher, some of the schools, and then some of the socioeconomic issues. Did we make improvement in those areas because they were down a little bit? Did we make improvements this year?
We saw many areas that made gains, and 85% of our campuses are A's or B's as far as the accountability ratings go. And 9 of our 13 rated campuses made improvements over their previous rating from 24. We're seeing some momentum upward for sure.
So your graduates are going to the military academies. You have sports teams. You have 14.9 million in scholarships. Doing big things. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love to point out here is you see the little people icons, and they're turquoise and then one gray one. The class of 25, over 90%, about 95% of those graduates were considered by the state as college, career, and military ready. And that's based on SAT scores, ACT scores, AP scores, PSI, creating an industry-based certification, enlisting in the military. There's just a myriad of ways that students can earn that designation. And so that's a piece of our accountability system at the hospital level. And so to have over 90% achieve that is really significant. Now, we imagination at the elementary, and particularly at the elementary. And we had so many teams that went to state and also globals. And our high school team over at MHS won their particular contest at globals. So they came in first in the world. So really excited for them.
And I do want to give a shout out to the ROTC program. It's making leaps and bounds. I did speak with Colonel Bolton briefly the other day, and they're doing big things, and I hope to have them on. But I did want to give them a shout out. You do have an ROTC program. Please support it, folks. Yeah. Athletics.
Athletically, I mean, our coaches, our teams, our athletes, the parents that support them just do great things. We continue to have good, deep runs into the playoffs. When you're playing baseball and softball after school's out, that's a pretty good season. And every football team wants to be practicing over Thanksgiving too. But the number I love to point out in this one is that number 82 on the banner. And there's a program that for seniors that are athletes that are playing a sport, if they've maintained an A average all 4 years of high school, they can earn the designation of academic all-state in their sport. And we had 82 of our seniors last year that earned that designation. So that tells me not only are we being successful on the field, on the court, in the pool, with the swim program, all that, but our athletes are being successful in the classroom as well and taking care of their academics.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then you got fine arts,
Mhm.
I guess, making quite an accomplishment.
Oh, yes. Yeah, our fine art programs continue to just really have high levels of achievement. Our dance programs are really strong. Our art programs are, if you think about the marching band, like MHS going to state, Heritage Marching Band continues to grow and makes ones at region and moving on to area. And then with the theater programs, if you haven't seen one of the musicals, you need to go to see one of those high school musicals. They are amazing. And our both musicals at both high schools in the spring were nominated for the Broadway Dallas Musical Association Awards. And with that, the MHS received Outstanding Musical through that. So again, just fantastic productions. Our kids in the fine arts areas continue to do great things.
I mean, I love that for the kids. I love that they're getting a well-rounded kind of education going on there. But there is growth, and we talked about that. Like you have all these homes going in Goodland. The Grove is still growing, finishing off, but growing in Lakes and Mockingbird. Talk to me about shifting there.
And these images we get from our demographer, he gives us an update multiple times a year on projections and the trends in the housing market in our districts. In the past 12 months, we've had approximately 1,100 new homes that were occupied in the district, 309 new home starts in the second quarter of 25, and 268 new home closings in the second quarter of 25. We've also been watching very carefully a development that's going in along 287, going north on 287 and Lake Song, and it's a large development, and they are now in the process of what I call moving dirt. The bulldozers are moving and they're developing lots there. So that'll add to the housing starts and things once they begin to go vertical.
And they're going into Midlothian ISD.
Yes, they are. They're in the city of Grand Prairie, the part they're developing now, but it's Midlothian ISD. That's correct.
Oh, wow. Now, I know that this is a bigger thing, but I wonder how they decide that, like how it's in Grand Prairie, it's going to be. Is that something that's decided by the state, or is that something that's worked out between you and Grand Prairie ISD where these kids are going to go?
Now, our district boundaries were set decades ago. And our district boundary goes to the county line on that northern portion. And so the cities will annex into different counties and in different school districts, their city limits. And Grand Prairie has annexed that section. And so that's why the city of Grand Prairie, but our school district. And so we do have great conversations with developers to stay abreast of what is happening, where the future is going, and just trying to stay in good communication.
Your enrollment now, this is the enrollment that's right now, and you said that we're at 11,509, right?
We topped out at 11,595, but we've drifted down a little bit. Again, kids, we've had some families that have moved and things of this nature. So we're in that range of 11,570-ish. And again, it changes on a daily basis. But one thing, a really good comparison is from the first day of school from the fall of 24 to the first day of school this year, we had 358 more kids on day one than we did last year. Okay. So that does show that our enrollment is increasing.
Where's the growth happening? What grades, or is it just sporadic? Where are you seeing the most growth?
It's spread out, but I will tell you, we've got a couple of middle schools that are ahead of some projections right now. So it appears some of the middle schools, Long Branch continues to grow, Vitoski continues to grow as well. So it's pretty spread out, but definitely the middle schools and then those two elementaries get a lot of attention from us with their numbers.
With that growth, which schools are going to get that growth? Like we were talking about Goodlands, which schools are expected to take the brunt?
Sure. Right now, Goodland is zoned for Vitovsky Elementary, Franksville Middle School, and Midlothian High School. So that particular area in that northwest quadrant of the district is zoned there. Long Branch is also their attendance on. They're growing quite a bit. Baxter is also growing in those particular areas of the district. So those two schools end up feeding the Walnut Grove Middle School and then Heritage High School.
So a couple of years ago, I think it was, and this is when you showed up to the district and you finally got into a budget time, you wanted to be pretty conservative about how you projected growth for a budget going forward, because the demographers had gotten a little wrong, but it can happen. So the demographers have projected this increase. Can you talk to me about this?
So you can see the 23 and 24 were like actual numbers as of the last Friday of October. That's called Team Snapshot Day in the school business. And we submit a lot of information to the state based on that last Friday of October. And those enrollment numbers you see there from the fall of 23 and the fall of 24, where then we work off of a low growth number from the demographer and then a moderate growth number. And you can see for the fall of 25 that the projection for the low growth was 11,522. And the moderate growth was 11,706. And we're between those two, closer to the low growth number, but between them right now. And then looking ahead to 29, the demographer would project us again at that low growth number of 12,508, which is just under 1,000 kids more than where we're sitting today, or at that moderate growth number, 13,197. And so again, I think we'll probably be between those two numbers based on the growth trajectory right now. Now, we're watching interest rates really closely for the housing market. And if interest rates continue to come down, it could accelerate housing in our district. So that's another reason for us to stay in very close contact to developers and our demographer to be able to adjust as quickly as we can.
Now, the population student enrollment, folks, for those of you at home, that not only does the school district have to plan for kids and seats, but also it determines on the funding that the schools get, because school kids and seats are how the schools get paid, or one portion of the very convoluted system that is school finance. But their daily attendance is how the schools get funding. So this enrollment is important when we go forward.
Yes, and it's called average daily attendance. So it's the enrollment multiplied by the attendance rate, and you get a number, that ADA, and then that's what the state's paying us off of, that basic allotment that we've talked about in the past. Yeah.
So this is what we've come to the show about, the bond election coming on November 4th. And it should be getting pretty close to the last day you can actually register for voting.
Correct. The last day to register to vote for the November 4th election is October the 6th. Yes.
It's coming up. Make sure you register to vote, do your civic duty. So let's talk bond.
Yes.
All right.
Back in August, the board called a $389,220,000 bond election to appear on the November 4th ballot. Okay. So the next slide shows you how it's divided up. There are 3 propositions that are going to be on the ballot, and each proposition stands independently. Okay. So voters will vote yes or no for each of the 3 propositions. Proposition A is really focused on growth, existing schools and facilities. Proposition B is focused on a standalone career and technical education center. And Proposition C is replacing technology devices, student technology devices, and teacher and staff technology devices that are reaching their end of life. And all 3 of these propositions, if the voters vote to approve them, there is no expected increase to the INS tax rate that is currently at 41 cents.
So I asked the community to give me questions, because there were people who were concerned about the bond. And so there's various questions that were given to me. And one of the questions was, why can't the school do these capital projects with existing funds as it grows? Like, you have more people coming in, so the school is getting more money. Why can't the schools use that money or plan accordingly to build a building or big capital project? Can you explain that?
I will. And there are 2 parts to that answer. One is, yes, as we are adding new housing, a new commercial property, then our local revenue will go up. But when that happens, the state revenue is reduced. Okay. And that's just how the system is created. And really it's based on a district's enrollment, what the maintenance operation resources that we have to operate. So just because we're collecting more revenue on the M&O side does not necessarily mean we have more money to operate, because the state is backing out their part to keep us on this even playing field, or we use an analogy of a bucket, and the size of that bucket doesn't change. Okay. So with that, so like capital improvements and things, sure. And we have a maintenance budget, and we repair air conditioning units. We will do roof patching. We'll repair some paint, or maybe paint a room and things like this in a small scale. When you have large scale projects, like a full roof replacement is going to be so expensive that the M&O side of the budget cannot hold up to that. And so with our budget on the maintenance and operations side, 83% of our budget is tied up in salaries, compensation for all of our employees. Okay. And so that leaves 17% in operations. And so that means we're paying for utilities, we're paying for diesel, we're paying to repair buses, we're paying for, oh gosh, I mean, anything. I already mentioned utilities, but like the electric bill, the gas bill, all of those kinds of things are coming from that operation side, including supplies for cleaning supplies for our custodians to clean buildings and things like this. And so in there will be some repair and replacement, but it's one thing to repair an air conditioning compressor. It's another thing to need to replace many air conditioners at a campus like Midlothian High School. So that's when districts go to a bond election to do significant capital improvements, as well as to be able to build a new school and expand schools and renovate them in to continue to meet needs in capacity and growth.
Is it feasible to say you want to build a school with just existing funds? Is that something that can happen? Or it can happen, but it would take 100 years to get there. What does that look like?
It really would. It's the price to build a school today has really escalated on us over the past 5 years. When I was at a previous school district, we built a new elementary for about $220 a square foot. Okay. Right now, based on feedback that the facility planning committee heard from general contractors, that has inflated up to over $400 a square foot to build an elementary school.
Oh, wow.
Just for construction costs. That doesn't include your architectural fees and permits and all those other things. But it is a significant cost to build a school. So that's why in Texas, the state allows us to request from the voters that authorization to issue bonds to fund building programs and things of this nature.
All right. Let's move on to there was a bond election. I want to say last year before?
2023, and we're about to get there. Yes.
Yes. So we're there. And there was a 2016 bond election.
Yes. This was the last successful bond election in 2016, about 9 years ago. And the voters approved a $268 million bond program that delivered 2 elementary schools. Urban was one of those. It was a replacement school, as well as Coleman Elementary. Additions to Heritage High School, converting the old Urban Elementary into the Mile, and then doing maintenance, technology purchases, and capital improvements. So that bond program has been delivered on time and on budget.
Now, you said, what did you say? And you said something about 400 square feet. So you couldn't possibly get what you got in 2016 for 268. You couldn't get that now, even close.
It would, no, you're right. The costs had just gone up exponentially. And Coleman Elementary opened, if I remember correctly, October of 22 or 23, 22. And I wasn't here for that. But so that building was bid in the middle of that escalation. And so we could not build that school again for the same price in today's market.
And I'm looking at the MISD election history.
Yes.
There was a lot of pass, and then you got some defeats in there. And talk to me about this slide.
Sure. Like you said, several pass. If you go back to 1958, there was a bond election for a $110,000 bond, which would be greatness. The world has changed since 1958. The last bond election was in May of 2023. It was built in 3 propositions, and it did not pass. The ask was about $416 million, and it did not pass. So a lot of reflection off of that. And of course, I came in October of 23, so it was after that election, but a lot of anecdotal conversation, reflection on that. And so try to learn some lessons from that particular election as we move forward.
What were some of and I know that I'm avoiding the political part, but as far as you being a superintendent, this is your first bond that you're actually here for. But what are some of the lessons as staff that you gathered from bond election?
To make sure that first off, I think part of that was when we formed our facility planning committee, and that's actually the next slide, the board approved a charge to the committee that basically didn't say, okay, committee, this is what you want, what the projects we want you to bring back to us. It was more of, here are the parameters that we want you to filter information through and bring back a financially conservative recommendation that's really focused on what you determine the needs are. And that particular charge to that committee, every single meeting of that facility planning committee that we had, we went back and looked at that charge from the board, so that way they could stay grounded in that. And again, keep that front of mind as they did their work. And then a big piece of that, the next slide talks about the membership of the committee. We had 80 people on that committee that attended 2 or more meetings. The picture you see here is the group at the last meeting where they agreed on the recommendations. And for a project to move forward, it had to have 75% support of the committee. Okay. And they came around with that support. There were some projects that did not make the recommendation to the board that people were pretty passionate about, but it did not hit that 75% threshold. The map that's there on the right really shows where committee members resided within the district. And so we really worked hard to get a really good cross-section of citizens on the committee. It was business leaders, community leaders, parents, grandparents, teachers, some principals, to really have a good cross-section of people in order to represent the community. And one of the things, like the next slide will show some images of different meetings. And the very first meeting was at the mile. And one of the things I share with them is there are going to be choices that have to be made. And I said, my job is to present you information. And that way, you as the committee and people from the community are going to make the recommendation to the board. It is not about me. It is about what you identify to recommend to the board. And that committee worked really hard. And we gave them a lot of information, and they worked really hard. And they ultimately brought the recommendation to the board, and then the board called the election.
So Proposition A, let's talk about more.
Yeah, this is the general prop. And so it's about growth in existing schools and facilities. What part of the proposal is for elementary school number 9, which would be a new elementary campus with a student capacity of 750, pre-K through 5. And we already own the property that school would be built on. Okay. The next slide talks about land, and the board really wanted in Prop A some funding to be able to purchase future land for future school sites. And so you can see these 5 sites are where there are 3 elementary sites that the district already owns and 2 middle school sites. But with the development that we're seeing, the board really wanted the opportunity for the voters to decide whether or not we can continue to purchase land. So elementary 9 would go on one of the sites we already own at this time.
So tell me, what site does that look like? Which site does that, if this bond were to pass for that elementary school, where is it looking? I know that would probably be a board decision. I'm not sure, but what does it look like in?
Really, if you look on that map, if you go back one slide and look on that map, you see all the blue up in the northwest quadrant, which is the upper left corner. And there's a lot of development there. So we do not have a campus in that part of the district. So we would probably anticipate elementary 9 going into that area, which is in Goodlands neighborhood. We have a site there.
Now going into this MHS renovations and capital.
The committee toured many of our facilities. Every meeting was at a different facility. Like I already said, we went to the Mile, then Long Branch Elementary. Second meeting, the third meeting was at Franksville. Then we went to Heritage High School, Dietrich Middle School, and ended at the administration building. And there was one night that we had committee members come and go to the transportation center, tour that facility, and then go over to the ag facility, and then Franksville for a deeper dive, and then MHS as well. So the committee recommended renovations and capital improvements to Midlothian High School. That 600 to 800 wing, which is on the southern part of the building, was built back in the 1970s. So it's 50 to 55 years old. It served us really well. But the TEA standards for classroom square footage was really different back then. And so the committee recommended the renovation of that area to move some walls around, expand classroom sizes. Also, there's some cast iron plumbing that has collapsed, making some restrooms unusable there. So to repair that, also within that particular renovation is the public library used to be at the MHS library. Now that it has moved over to City Hall, reconfiguring that library space to make it a true high school library and expanding that long hallway that connects the south part of the building to the north part of the building to widen that to help with egress. And then the capital improvements would be a full roof replacement. It would be, we have HVAC units that are, the Freon that is used for those is getting to the point where we are not allowed to use that.
You have R22 in there probably. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So people can know R22 is upwards of $1,000. If you could get it, it's getting close to $1,000 a 30-pound can. So it can get very expensive when you have any leaks. Go ahead.
Yeah, and replacing multiple, there's several HVAC units there at MHS that would be totally replaced. And then in the auditorium, some lighting, sound, in the black box theater, some lighting and sound, paint, flooring. So really just some bathroom fixtures and things of this nature over at MHS.
Now, the issue that some people rose was, why isn't that something why do we have to take out debt to handle that?
Again, when you refloor a high school building that's thousands upon thousands of square feet, the cost is substantial. And that renovation of that 600, 800 wing, it's, again, there's substantial costs there. So for bonds to fund that construction project would help protect the M&O side of the budget.
Now, Frank Seal.
Yes. Frank Seal, it was built in 1984 based on the plaque there in the front. I wasn't here then, but that's what I'm seeing there. And, I love this building, but there are, like, I think back in the 80s, people like sunken living rooms, if you remember those and things, but we have like a sunken cafeteria, and that entryway is a sunken entryway when you come into the building. So when the committee toured Frank Seal, they really recommended to be able to level that cafeteria floor, address things with the stage and with the lighting on the stage there, as well as theater class and choir renovations at Frank Seal. In addition, some capital improvements there. The electrical switchgear panel, which is a huge panel there. It's like, you have your breaker box at home, but this is for a commercial building. And so it is original to the building and uses inline fuses, and they don't make those fuses anymore. So we've hoarded some, but there's going to be a point that could be an issue. To replace that switchgear, the roof repair and restoration, the skylights, this building has skylights, they're leaking in some areas. And so again, repairing and replacing HVAC units, lighting, flooring, paving.
Just for context, when your maintenance folks, your maintenance department is telling you, Dr. Belding, we're having to mess with this roof again. What is yearly kind of cost since you've been here that you're seeing trying to keep patches on this stuff?
I don't know the exact numbers, DV. I wish I could know them right off the top of my head. I'm just going to be straight with you. I don't know right off the top of my head. But the part of what the facility planning committee saw were leaks in the roof, especially in that art room that's there, as well as in the library, and to be able to really go and do what needs to be done in order to fix that roof.
Yeah. And imagine those things get expensive just in general, but Long Branch.
And I do know one cost, like the estimate that we received from the architect to replace the roof at MHS, which is the total replacement, is a $9 million expenditure. That gives you an example of why to go out for a bond program in order to be able to complete that.
I got in the wrong business. I'm going to pick up a hammer.
Yeah. You think about the flat out linear feet of a roof like that, and on that building, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
So Long Branch.
Right. So we have 3 sister schools, Long Branch Elementary, Mountain Peak, and Batofsky Elementary. And they're great schools, but they were opened in the late 90s, early 2000s. So those schools are 25 to 28 years old at this point. And
Mhm.
and so again, doing some finishes and fixtures and restrooms to ensure ADA compliance. This is really about capital improvements at the campus. The elevators, ensuring ADA compliance there and make sure in repairing them or replacing them. Worn out, replace that flooring. Again, AV equipment and new finishes in the cafeteria stage, LED lighting and controls. And paving and grading is another thing. We've got, again, our maintenance crew has worked really hard to take care of them, but sidewalks settle over years, over decades and things. So in order to either pull all that out and repair it or lift that sidewalk back up, it's just, that's part of these capital improvement projects.
Have you had flooding problems there?
We have at Mountain Peak in particular. Yeah, we had a pretty good flood when I first got here, and it was a pipe that broke and things, those kinds of things to be able to address.
Batasi, same thing. Batasi.
Yeah, same thing there. And then Mountain Peak's the next slide. It's all three sister schools are basically getting the same.
Okay, technology and infrastructure.
So we have 17 facilities throughout the district. And when you think about the technology infrastructure to keep our network up and running and all the demands on the technology network with switches and servers and security cameras and recording that security camera footage. So replacing the cameras at all campuses and facilities to be able to upgrade those. Access control software, it's a different time in schools. And so this technology infrastructure with safety and security is a piece that the facility planning committee recommended that be included. Yeah.
And then your buses, you had mentioned this earlier. Are we having to replace the whole fleet or what's going on?
Now, not the whole fleet, but we drive almost 1 million miles a year with our school buses between routes, games, field trips. And so we have 12 buses that are more than 13 years old. And we have another 7 buses that are only about 3 to 4 years old that have over 50,000 miles on them already. The recommendation from the facility planning committee was to purchase 30 buses and a regular school bus, just a regular yellow school bus with cameras and air conditioning that runs about $150,000 a bus. And now one thing I always like to point out here is in a bond program, you don't finance a bus for 30 years. The term of the bond will match up with the life expectancy of the item we're purchasing. Like for a bus, the term of that financing is a 10-year term for those. So we will not be paying on buses for 30 years. It's only a 10-year term.
Thank you for that clarification, because that could be counterintuitive if you're paying that long. And so you're looking at maybe 10 years for that purchase.
That's right. Yeah.
Buses. And then the ag facility renovation and expansion.
And our ag program continues to grow. We have great participation there. We have kids starting in 3rd grade can show in animal projects. So we have kids showing pigs, sheep, goats, cattle, rabbits, and chickens. And although we don't house those at the barn. And so when the facility planning committee toured that, they really recommended increasing capacity. So as we grow, to be able to make sure kids can participate and continue to participate there, as well as adding classroom space there, because we do have a class that meets there. So increasing that capacity and security upgrades over at the ag barn, and then doing some renovation and touch-ups to some things there at the end.
Playing devil's advocate, is it something that we need right now? And what does this program mean to the kids? What does it do for the kids?
There are a lot of kids that learn so many great lessons through the ag program. Everything, when you have a sheep or a goat or a pig at the barn, if it's a school holiday, you still need to go up there and take care of your animal. And they learn teamwork, and they learn just that responsibility of taking care of that. And then how to go and show that animal in the ring and see the outcome of all of that work. And again, it's a growing program. The facility planning committee recommended that increased capacity to support students participating in that program.
Transportation facility.
Right. We have over 200 vehicles that our maintenance guys there at transportation take care of. And so the big piece of this one is an additional 7,500 square feet for mechanical bays to maintain the district's fleet. And one of those bays will have a pit dug out of it so they can be underneath changing fluids out of vehicles and things of this nature, kind of like a quick car or something, right? And things. In addition, expanding restroom availability for the staff there, paving repairs for that area, and then also expanding the break room and training space there at that transportation facility.
Where's the transportation facility at now?
It's over off of, I can drive to it, head of the road, and I can drive right over there.
Mr. Belding, that's great.
I can get there. I can take you.
An HVAC system upgrades, flooring, lighting, painting, paving, and all the kind of construction things that happen.
Right. That's right. And again, all of our facilities would be touched with this in some way, shape, or form. DV, if you go to the next slide, this is a really great just visual of what each campus would be slated to get. So you can see, for instance, Baxter Elementary would get roofing repair or replacement, and it would get, let's see what else, flooring, painting, some paving. And the other part of that is like at Coleman, that building's only 3 years old. So the painting that it might get are simply touch-ups. It's not going to get anything real significant. Maybe a little bit of paving and things, but it's going to be pretty small. Urban is about 6 years old. It'll get a little bit more than Coleman just because it has more age on it, but it's not going to get the significant kind of work that Frank Seal is slated to get, or MHS, or even Walnut Grove or Long Branch, the three sister schools. So again, it depends on what that facility needs and to be able to go and address the needs at each facility to keep those facilities working the way they should.
Okay, so devil's advocate again. If the bond were not to pass for these capital improvements, what are some of the expectations you have going forward? How can we continue with this? Is it going to be a patchwork? Going to have to be a patchwork?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it absolutely will be. And if, too many HVAC units go down, we'll simply repair what we can, that we have the budget to repair and things of this nature. And with the paving and things like this, we'll do what we can as we can. It'll certainly extend out to taking longer with that. And this slide here is just a summary of what is in Prop A, which is the general proposition for Prop A and all the different projects there. So it's just a summary slide here we talked.
If this, and this was obviously all wrapped up in A, and I didn't know that, but the elementary school is also on A. If this bond didn't pass and the elementary is not built, what are some of the things how will the district proceed if it doesn't pass with the growth that's coming, and what will they do about that?
Sure. Part of the strategy we're using right now is we're doing what we call overflow, where kids, if a grade level is full at an elementary school, we're sending them to an elementary that's outside their neighborhood in order to keep those class sizes where we're not inflating them too big and things of this nature. We will avoid portable buildings by doing that strategy as long as we possibly can. So that's certainly a piece of the puzzle for us, is overflowing kids to that area.
Why not portable buildings? Tell me why that's a bad idea.
There's some security concerns around portable buildings, whether it's severe weather or just security. And obviously school security is priority one in our business. And we have a great SRO program with the city of Midlothian PD and things of this nature, but portables just complicate that for sure. And that's one reason why we certainly don't want to do it. And then if you have to rent, we have to buy them or rent them. And so that's a cost that is associated with that as well.
So this is something that's near and dear to my heart. Out of all the propositions and all the things, Career and Technical Center, because I completely agree with this kind of direction that schools are taking when it comes to CTE and these kids learning the trade. So tell me about this property.
Sure. It is a new standalone CTE center. If you go to the next slide, right now at the Mile, we have 840 plus students that go over to the Mile to take a CTE course right now. Last year, we had over 6,200 students enrolled in CTE courses. So our enrollment at the Mile has grown about 58% since 23-24. So this is, just like you're saying, DV, this is a growing area of interest that a lot of our students are taking coursework in CTE. If you go to the next slide, This is our present enrollment this year with a different CTE pathway. So you see, like health science, we have 668 students enrolled, and we could certainly enroll more students if we had more capacity. With culinary arts, we have 429 students. You can see engineering, we have 277 students that are enrolled in that engineering pathway. You can see 18 students in cosmetology. Right now, our students that want to take cosmetology have to go to Navarro College over in Waxahachie to be able to take that. So to leave campus, drive all the way over there and get back, we have more students that would like to take cosmetology. They can't fit it into their schedule. And then TSTC is where diesel mechanics, and there's another program that they offer over there at the Red Oak campus. We have 72 students enrolled in that, and that's up some. But again, we have more students that would like to do it, but to get over there and back in their schedule, it just doesn't fit.
I have a question that a citizen asked.
Sure.
For those, what programs of studies are being discussed? And you talked about, have they discussed ideas, equipment, layout, etc., with industry, or have they visited and discussed with other school districts that are doing this? Have you gotten with the DOL to see which industries are in demand? What kind of things go into that?
Absolutely. And one of the things, our director of CTE, Chris Vernon, he is currently working with community people and within our students on interest as well, and creating a strategic plan on what CTE offerings that we want to continue to add into the future. And then the next slide actually gets into this a little bit. So it's a great question. So what this next slide will show is what we are currently offering at both of our high schools and at the Mile. So you can see at the Mile, we offer culinary arts with really a school kitchen layout, cybersecurity, engineering, entrepreneurship, law, and video game design. If the voters approve Prop B, which would be the CTE Center, we would be looking to expand in our courses of study into architecture and construction, automotive, which is auto tech, aviation, cosmetology. We talk about culinary arts, but really have an opportunity to build a commercial kitchen that they would experience out in the real world, okay, in the industry. Drone technology, engineering would continue and expand, entrepreneurship, esports, health science. And when we say health science, we would move those upper level courses to a new CTE center that had spaces specifically built for health science as opposed to converted classrooms for that. And then law and robotics. So you can see these are the things we're interested in: expanding capacity of current programs and expanding our offerings, just like that citizen asked. And these are things, I had a meeting with some industry partners just the other day that was facilitated by Kyle Kennetater, and we had a great conversation about workforce needs that they had into the future, and then how helping us to have a focus in that area.
Now you have TSTC building up, and I'll get back to the slides in a second. But we have TSTC building up on Midlothian. I think they're building a Midlothian something. Why not just have them do their thing and us partnership with them instead of doing a CTE center?
Sure.
A question that somebody locally asked.
Yeah, yes. And first off, we have a great conversation with TSTC on an ongoing basis, and we would not duplicate what they're offering, and we won't duplicate each other. We won't add something that could be done there. And that way we're expanding our offerings. And the other part of that is, I don't necessarily want us to fully rely on an outside entity, and our kids have access to what they're offering and only what they're offering. And if our community and a lot of the feedback we're getting is, we want these other programs, and then that allows it to be within our scope of control.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now the new CTE center, the phase 1, it'll be 125,000 square foot. Where would this be?
Correct. We've got a couple of sites we would consider. I'm not quite ready to say it's going to be X, but here yet, but a little more, definitely more centrally located than the Mile. The other part of that is, again, this is phase 1, and part of the committee bringing a financially conservative recommendation to the board was just the price tag for the phase 2 as well was just more than what they wanted to recommend. So they went with a phased approach. Right now at the Mile, we have 32,000 square feet of CTE space. So this definitely increases our capacity and allows us to add those new programs. And you may be wondering, what are you going to do with the Mile if this is approved and we build a CTE center?
Yes.
We're really glad you asked that question. And so what we plan to do with the Mile, if the voters see fit to approve the CTE center, is really to take our LEAP program, which is our alternative high school credit recovery program, and expand it quite a bit. Right now we have about 70 seats, and last year it stayed full most of the year. And we would want to really deploy a true alternative high school program for those students that need a non-traditional path to a high school diploma, and also expand our DAEP seats more than we have right now.
We've seen examples from other ISDs. I went to Waxahachie ISD to see their CT and took a tour of it back when Mr. Hollingsworth was there, and it was pretty darn amazing. They had so many things going on, and there's something about us. For me, it's VT in the education setting. They call it CT. It's all the same, but VT education and VT educators, we're a different breed, and it's very enjoyable to watch these kids actually do these things and learn these things and these functional things.
Sure.
And not everybody's going to make you proud and go to Tarleton and the UT. Some are meant for other things. These programs provide those little exits. Like you went to other schools and took pictures.
We did, and I will say this. You're right. And not everybody needs to go to college. They can make a great living. If I had a family member that was an HVAC repair person,
It's a friend.
and I will tell you, I would be proud of them because they are important people to me in July when my air conditioning goes down, right? And there's a lot of great career paths in that CTE area. But those images you just showed were not necessarily what we're going to design, but just examples what other ISDs have in their CTE centers.
Sure. Not Proposition C is if the tech devices, basically.
Correct. That's right. Our student Chromebooks, iPads, and then the teacher and staff laptops are coming to their end of life. And we know that technology is a reality, and our students need to learn to appropriately use it, to test on. The STAR test is given all online now. You got third graders typing essays for the test. And so they've got to be really comfortable with that. So they've got to have really access to technology, and then creating that all the way through 12th grade. And so a lot of those devices are reaching their end of life. So being able to replace those devices. And again, you don't finance a Chromebook or an iPad or a laptop for 30 years. These would be financed for 5 years, which is the life expectancy of those devices.
Now, a question with interest rates, the way that they go. And I know that these bond rates are different. They go on your rating and it's a little bit different. And, but they're a little higher than they were previously.
Yeah.
How are we doing with the existing and then these bonds right now? What kind of rates are we looking at?
Boy, that's a real detailed question. I want to say that's okay. The bond market seems like it's in that. Gosh, I think I know, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. The interest rates on bonds are definitely a little higher than they were 2 or 3 years ago. But if the Fed lowers interest rates, that may impact the bond market in a positive way. But I don't know that for sure. It just depends on the market.
The school finance now, and there was a lot of questions about this, which I'm going to weave in here. But can you talk about this slide?
Absolutely. Our school district has had the highest rating on the first rating, which is how the state rates school districts for 23 straight years. A lot to be proud of there with that. That $127 million is the amount of interest the board has saved our taxpayers by either paying off bonds early or refinancing bonds to lower interest rates since 2010. So that's $127 million of interest that our taxpayers do not have to pay because we've been paying on that debt early or refinancing.
One of the folks that asked questions online talked about the current debt of the district and in general, the current debt, and then adding the 300. And how much was this total bond?
389.2 million.
Yeah. 389.2 million would put it close to $1 billion, or
No,
$750 million, or
well, 3/4. It would. Our current principal on the debt is 333 million, and a little bit more than that. And so when we add, if the voters approve this, and we add another 389, that's about 710 to 720 million. When we make our payment in the spring, we will be paying off some bonds early, so that very well may bring it back down below that 700 million number.
yes, and That was a concern. People saying the district, and some people online can get in that they can get a little extra. So the district get $1 billion in debt, and 3/4 of billion is not something to laugh about. It's a tough number.
Sure.
But another concern that people had was the language on the ballot, and it talks about your tax rate will go up, and the legalese behind these things when they go up for election. So now that we're in this tax rate thing, talk to me about this.
Sure. Again, our total tax rate is made up of two, M&O tax rate and the INS tax rate. The INS tax rate is what we're talking about with this bond election. And the INS taxes can only be used to pay on your debt. You can't use it to go build anything. You can't use it to pay the salaries of teachers and things. You can only use it to basically pay on your mortgage. Okay. And our actual bond capacity at 41 cents is $464 million. The committee opted to be financially conservative in their recommendation to the board, doing a recommendation that was in that $389 million area. So we still have about 75 million in capacity at 41 cents. So what this allows us to do is that rate would not be expected to increase at all to be able to make the payments on the new debt, and then also pay off bonds early to continue to save on that interest money.
And this is the rate that we're at right now.
And this is where we're at right now. So again, it's not expected to change.
So the bonds
are basically investors purchasing municipal bonds at a particular interest rate return. And that allows districts to fund new facility projects, renovations, land and technology, the things that we've talked about, capital improvements, those kinds of things. It allows school districts to fund those construction projects and things like that. Now this slide,
tax rates compared to the different cities.
Sure, that's right. And so this is, you can see our tax rate there in blue, and then the other districts around us that you can see, if they're in red, they have a higher tax rate, total tax rate than we do. If they're in gray, they have a lower total tax rate than we do. Now, one thing about this, and again, ours it's not expected to change with the outcome of this election. So another thing that our district does is our district gives an optional homestead exemption of 10% off the market value of people's homes. And when that's applied, let's say you have a $400,000 home that's valued there by ECAD. So we apply that 10% right at the beginning. So that's $40,000 off the taxable value of the homes. That gets to $360. Then the state exemptions are applied. Okay. So right now it's 100,000. There's a proposition for it to go to 140. And so that's applied. So that would drop it down to either 260,000 or 220,000. And that's what it's taxed off of. So what that does is the next slide shows you at a home that's average value of $484,200, the check that people are writing for MISD is $3,167 for your school taxes, not everything else. And then all the other districts in red, the check people are writing is higher than ours. And that optional homestead exemption impacts that, where the check people are writing is less than those other districts.
Some people were concerned with that, with having to pay taxes. So I've followed the budget and the concerns with that, and we'll get back to the slide just a second. But we've talked about budgets, and we've gone through it in the last couple of years, and I'm grateful that I have the communication with the districts that I do locally about that. But we saw that there was a $6 million deficit that whittled down to 300,000 or something like that. And then there was a sale of land, and there was some other things, and the state funding kicked in some funding. So there was some other things that happened, because school finance is just brutal. But
it is. Yeah.
There were some people concerned about the district running in a deficit and adding debt. How is that? If we can't afford what we have now, how are we going to add a debt of $300 and some odd million and be able to afford it and not come into more of a deficit? Was one of the questions there about that online.
Sure.
Can you talk to me about that?
Absolutely. And again, on our operational budget, which is the maintenance and operations side, yes, we have a projected deficit again this year of a little over $3 million. Now, we are still vetting through House Bill 2 and all the impact of that, but that's the projection at this point. The bond election really impacts the interest and seeking side of your tax rate. And so at that 41 cents, there is no deficit on the INS side. The deficit is only on the operational side. Okay. So as far as continuing to increase capacity, build a new school and things of this nature, that INS part of it is not a concern to run a deficit. The operational side, now, when we open a new campus, we're going to have to add some staff for sure. We'll also be able to move some teachers, because you're not going to open that campus full, more than likely, right? It's going to open partially full, and we'll grow into it. And so that enrollment will help fund some of that as well. But we do have work to do on the M&O side of our budget. And I'm really proud of our staff for in that 23-24 budget of narrowing that deficit down to less than $1 million. Really proud of how hard everybody worked to do that. We had a lot of positions we didn't fill that we eliminated through that at the district level, and then at campuses as well. And then last year, again, we were able to narrow that gap down. And then, like you said, we sold a 3-acre tract that we were never going to use. And that actually helped us to balance and put a little bit in fund balance. So I'm really proud of the board. I'm proud of our district for finding a way to make that happen.
Our community tends to do that. We find a way. It's going back into the slides here. And I'm sorry, I've held you over a little bit with your building. We're talking some good stuff here.
Yes.
People were asking questions. So there'll be no change to the tax rate as expected. That's a word that some people might get scared of, but that is a political decision, folks. It's not something I could ask Belding about. Your board, you can talk to your board members and ask them if they will be raising your tax rate at any time. And that is a conversation between you and them. That's not something Dr. Belding happens. He gets told which rate you're going to go and he goes from there. But as of right now, there's no projected tax rate increase for seniors, for anybody.
Correct. That's right. And that's like the next slide talks about 65 and older and their ability to freeze their school taxes. And when that happens, when our 65 and older citizens and stakeholders freeze their school taxes, it's the amount they're paying, not the rate, not the market value, but the amount. And it's your school taxes. So city and county is a little different. And so if your taxes go up, and you froze your school taxes, the school taxes didn't change. They can only go down like Proposition, I think it's 11 on the constitutional amendments would raise the 65 and older homestead exemption from $10,000 to $60,000. So therefore that would lower their taxes, even if they're frozen. And then the Proposition 13 is for the general homestead exemption to be increased from $100,000 to $140,000. I jumped ahead a little, but it goes to that for people that are 65 and older to freeze their taxes on their homestead. And it's the amount that's frozen.
And there were some people that were seniors that were concerned about how that would affect them. There is a freeze on some things. Now, your valuations, folks, are your valuations. And those can come in as they come in. And then the other stuff, like I said, is more of the rate is more of a political decision. But as it stands now, with everything said and done, you were saying that as it stands now, there would be no.
That's right. We project that INS tax rate will remain the same. But this slide talks about that homestead exemption, if it's approved by voters, Prop 13, going from 100,000 to 140, that based on the average taxable value of the homes in our district, it would save our taxpayers $593 on their property taxes this year compared to last year.
If that thing passes, will that affect the school district finances significantly?
On the M&O side, the state will have a hold harmless to backfill that loss of local revenue for that homestead exemption. So that'll help us there. But we've taken into account that homestead exemption on the INS side because it would have hurt our capacity, but we've already taken it into account. So that 464 million capacity I talked about earlier has that homestead already built in, the increase in the home.
Dr. Belding, I'm looking at the legal language, and according
if the voters approve these propositions, the district would then be issuing new debt. And even though the rate is not projected to change and to remain the same, the term that people are paying on this debt is going to extend because we're issuing new debt. Okay. And so the years we're paying are going to be longer, and therefore we're paying more because we're paying longer in the years, not necessarily more year over year. Although, depending on valuations, that moves around a little bit, right? And things of this nature. And if the exemption goes through, it drops for people for this year. But then evaluations and things like it's a lot of moving pieces. But it's really about paying longer and not necessarily the year over year increase. And then the rest of the ballot would go into issuing $226,455,000 for Prop A, Prop B at $157 million for the CTE Center, and that's at phase one. Then Prop C, $5.6 million.
And then, do you have, like right now, is there something designed right now for the amount that you're asking for? Is there like prints for, what this center is going to look like, or are we ahead of ourselves there?
No,
Does it
sir.
all have to be approved before then, or?
No, we have not designed a CTE Center. We have what we call a pool of architectural firms that if the voters see fit to approve these propositions, that we would begin to pull architectural firms to work on different projects and things of this nature. So this really provides a possible timeline. I want to make it clear, I'm not promising that we're going to hit these dates exactly, but this shows you where our priorities would be. Like in January 26th, starting design on Elementary 9, the CTE Center, and the capital improvements and renovations, starting to purchase buses. And it takes a while to get buses in and the technology purchases. And then hopefully getting under construction on Elementary 9 and CTE Center in January 27, designing that ag facility addition renovation, transportation facility, and starting those capital improvements and renovations district-wide. Then starting construction on the ag facility and transportation facility in January 28, hopefully opening the new elementary school and CTE Center in August of 28, and then really wrapping everything up in August of 29. And this is a pretty aggressive schedule, but it shows you where our priorities are and where we would start. And you may say, why don't you go and design everything? There's just so much staff and capacity to be able to be in those meetings. To design a building in a school, it takes a lot of time and a lot of people around the table to give input and things of this nature.
Make sure you guys get out and vote. I see the vote dates there, and election day, and where they're going to be doing the voting, and it's all right there. So this is where I come in right here a little bit. And I've asked you these questions along the way, and I'm sorry for holding you on a little bit, but this is just so much good stuff. We talked about the debt, we talked about tax, and most of that being a political decision, but where we're at now, you're saying 2028, 2029 is when, if this all was approved. One of the questions that were asked were, none of this passes.
Mm-hmm.
What is the ramifications of it? What was it? The financial and social ramifications of delaying that?
Sure. And I think you know me well enough, DV, to know I don't try to exaggerate things and things of this nature. Okay. Financially, construction costs are only going to continue to go up. Okay. We would probably see costs increase. Don't know that for sure, but based on history, that's what's happened. And then we would be looking to, again, manage the growth in those campuses that are hitting their capacity, moving students to other schools to avoid portable buildings as long as we could, in order to, again, have kids go where there's space, things of that nature. So we would continue to do that and deploy that strategy with that.
Was that land sale that we talked about earlier, was that land that was supposed to be used for an expanding heritage?
No, that 3 acres that we sold it's off of 287. And so it wasn't anywhere near really any of our campuses. And 287 kind of cut through some property, and it was just this little triangle piece over there. Yeah.
Is there a better solution to address the influx of students?
As in,
is there a better solution other than these bonds right now to address the influx of students that may come, the different things that have to be?
I have to be careful not to advocate. And I will say the facility planning committee took in a lot of information, and this is what they recommended. And this recommendation came from the community.
I was going through the last question that I got from the community. Dr. Belding, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sorry for holding you on so long. There was just so much to discuss on this stuff. There's so much at stake. Make sure you guys get out and vote, whether you agree, disagree. I hope that this provided some context in here, some numbers. There's going to be some political arguing about those things, but what I wanted to do was just kind of present out and then ask questions along the way that you've been asking, and hopefully I did that. Dr. Belding, go get some dinner. Thanks a lot for coming on again, and hopefully we get through this and keep going.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody, everyone's, I want to say, support of the district. And I'm not talking about this election now, but just of our kids, and being present and watching them play or perform and just be part of it. We really do appreciate, this is a special place, and it means a lot to me just when I get to see people out at our schools and things. So thank you everyone for that.
Thanks a lot. Can you stick